Unleash your creativity with a micro welder, episode 28. Today we are going to be making these stacking chain rings. These are the tools and components I'll be using in this video. I will have detailed information and links in the description below. Let me start by saying that this is a very versatile design and you can use any ring. Ideally, it would be not too thick and not large block bands, unless you have wire or jump rings that are big enough that you can compress later. And it's just a little bit more complicated, but totally doable. So we have here sterling silver, and it could be any metal actually, but got sterling silver, and I'm going to use gold filled. It can be two-tone, whatever works, whatever you wish, and whatever you have in hand. So what I'm going to do actually is I would like the silver to go from this finger to this finger. So you want rings that are appropriately sized. One. And second thing is you want chains that are easier, that will drape nicely. So avoid the long bar chains where it's going to be difficult or stickish. So Rollo, cable, and you actually you could have very chunky chain. So, but then you want bands that are chunky. In this case, we have, so balance in size aesthetically, but I'm going to use stacking rings because they're fun and I can actually stack multiples. And I'm going to use this satellite chain because I think it's really pretty like this. So we're going to start with this, and I'm going to show you how it's done. Let's start by talking about the length of chain. And you want to plan it so that it is comfortable and drapes exactly the way you want. So you want to decide, do you want it to drape like such? Or do you want it tight, so snug like this? Whatever you decide on, you don't want it to be so tight that it restricts your movement. So if you're typing like this, or if you're clenching a fist, so you want to measure out what exactly you want to do. And in this case, actually, I want a slight garland. I want a slight drape like this. If it is the case that you want it tight across, know that you can actually move the jump rings over a bit so that it's like this, but you don't want it so tight that it has to be like that. Maybe you could have it across here to there, and know that when you're putting it on, if it's tight, you're going to have to go slowly, one at a time. Okay, so loose is actually better, and you can mock it up first and decide to trim a little later. So I think what I want is approximately like this. And in this case, it's actually easy. I can see how many of these balls to go through. Otherwise, you might just have to use a piece of string or something that is less expensive, and you can mock it up. Okay, so I think this is where I want it. And then we're going to mock it up. I'm going to take a moment to talk about jump rings. If it is the case, and in this case it is, a very thin, small stacking band, then the small jump rings will work. And I take a look and I'm certain it will work. Now, if it is a case that your ring is either thicker wire, rounder, bigger, or that it is flat and wide band, or if you are actually wanting to do 3 in a row, stack locked together, then you want to make sure that your jump ring is big enough to go through, to go over all of them. And here I'm going to talk about if it is the case that you have a thick, wide band, so something that is wide like this, what you can do is hold on to the jump ring, and you want the seam to be here, and you want to press down, and I'll explain why in a moment, like this. Basically what you're doing is squeezing, and squeeze it here. All of a sudden you have something wider, right? Wide and narrow, and you continue to do that. And you'll have to fix this part, but you don't have to worry about it. You just pinch down like this. And flatten both sides, and then press down again. So you're basically working so that it ends up being a paper clip, like this. In that way, so for example, in that way, I twist open like this, and I can lock in 3, 4, rings like this. And of course I put the chain, but I've got a lot more room. So you can select jump rings that are bigger to press down, or if it is really unique and you want to use wire to do it from scratch, you can do that as well. So basically we want the jump ring size to be appropriate. And in this case, the 3mm jump rings will work, and it is 24 gauge. Now that I've decided on 24 gauge 3mm jump rings because it fits my project nicely, I'm going to take a look at whether or not it fits through the chain easily. And it does. However, if it is a case that you have a chain where it is really tight, here's a hack. If the chain link is oval and not already round, and you need it to be slightly bigger, use a pin like this, put it through, and I'm going to show you before and after. I've shown this hack a number of times, but here, it is oval, and then all you have to do is do this. You can press down onto a pad of paper with a post-it note, or you can just do this and work a little bit. You'll see now that jump ring is a lot more round. Okay, so that is something you might want to consider. Now all of a sudden it is really easy to put through. So if it was the case that I wanted to use this chain with a thicker jump ring, that hack would work perfectly. So I am going to pivot open and put this through and close it. And since I've got it here, I might as well press down to make sure that it is closed nicely. You don't have to do that right away. I've sometimes double check first that I like it, so I'm not wasting my time making it perfectly touching. Hey, if you're enjoying this, give me a thumbs up now and subscribe so you don't miss my upcoming projects. Okay, so now I've mocked this up like this. And I'm going to do this and see if I like it. And I do. And know that actually, if I wanted to make it a little bit tighter, make sure that this. So I'm moving it to the other side of the stone and see if I still like it. And you know that with time and movement, this will likely try to get closer to this. So it'll be like this. I like it. The other thing is, if you don't, you can cut it later. So we'll see after I've welded this plus my other ring, whether or not I still want to change it. Okay, I'm ready to weld, and I'll take a second to explain the setup I've got here. I'm using the Orion Impulse, and I've replaced the ADL with this foam clip so that it's easier for me to film with. Normally when I'm doing studio work, I like it with the ADL and it's steady and I weld that way. Here I'm using the grounding pliers, but it would be exactly the same using grounding clips. And I'm going to be welding 24 gauge sterling silver. I have it set at 6 watts. Usually, if I'm not filming, I use 5 watts power. The reason why 6 watts is sometimes I tremble a little bit, and higher wattage just compensates for imprecision. So, okay, we're ready, and I am going to do this. By the way, I'm not using argon gas. I love using it, but a number of people ask whether or not it would work without the argon, and it will. And I'll show you, it can only be better with argon because there's oxidation without it, and I can just show you how to remove it. So here we go. Okay, that's good. It's okay to weld a second time if you wish. Sometimes I like to do that because the difference in snap sounds tell me that maybe it's not that deep. Okay, so we know that that is good. And here, this is what it looks like. It's got that oxidation because I'm not using argon. With argon, there'll be just less of it. And it'll cool faster, so you might get a rounder, smoother weld. There we go. But I don't dislike it. And let's see. show you a different angle. Okay, good. Let's do the other side. Okay, that worked. It is so easy, especially welding when you have chain. With flame and flux, I often melt the chain and things that are nearby. It's hard to control. Okay, so this is done. That's all that it took. Now I'm going to have my chain ring. I think I'd like to wear it like this. Oh no. I'm gonna have it this way, the other side of the stone. There we go. So actually, what I'm going to do next is, since this band is somewhat flat, what I'm going to do is I'm going to flatten this a bit. Elongate. So instead of having a circle, I'm going to make it slightly oval. Like that. Might as well do it on the other side as well. Even though this is round and the circle, the jump ring, solder ring is round. It's good. So what I'm doing now is, see this, the seam is here. I press down on this and it's less noticeable. It's not at the top or the bottom, and that's where normally it wants to go naturally, the oval this way. So in this case, it just looks so much nicer. It's all in the details. And by the way, with this, the rubber part, you polish it if it so happens that you scratch your ring. Just polish it up. There. So I've got one done. And now I'm going to make the other one. I've decided on Rollo chain. And it's important in this case to talk about wanting your chain to be strong enough, and it is. Sometimes, because there's a lot more movement with your fingers typing and getting things caught, you don't want a chain that's too fine or dainty, because it is bound to break because of the wear and tear. So I've got this. I'm going to do the same thing where I'm going to measure. Okay, so I want to wear it this way. I mean, I could easily have done this and then do a shorter chain, but I think I wouldn't want to leave that empty. So I think this is my idea, having it here, and I want a shorter chain. But know that if I have a very short chain, it's not going to work for me to try to wear it this finger and that one if it's very short. No matter. I want it like that. So I'm eyeballing it, and then I'm making it slightly longer than I need, so that if I change my mind, I'm not wasting chain. Okay, so now I'm just going to take this off for easier filming. Make sure that you open your jump ring enough so that you don't scratch your ring. with the jump ring, that there's enough clearance. Okay. By the way, there's only this one that has a pattern. This other ring can be worn this way or that way. If it is the case that both of them have a specific pattern, make sure that your chain is not twisted and that when it is done this way, both of them face the way you want. So the way to do that is to have it and drape it and then see if it is facing the way you want. Okay, so now I'm going to test that out. By the way, I'm going to see if this actually can, ooh, I think I might be able to wear both of them, I mean, both ways. So I can, but it is, okay, I can. So this is a good time to talk about this. If you are doing chain rings like this, or chain ring and a bracelet, you want to make sure that there is enough space. So I'm doing this and it is not too tight. And when I expand like this, and it's fine, I was to hold a softball. So you want it to be long enough. Okay. So now we are ready to weld. Okay, now we are ready to weld. I'm going to check where the seam is. That's perfect. And this is 24 gauge gold filled at 6 watts. I would suggest that if you have it, use solid gold for the ring like this, because your hands tend to get sweatier. I'm going to show you what happens. Not that it's very noticeable, but over time there's a slight black mark that is maybe half a poppy seed size. And if it's going to bother you because you're typing, you're seeing it all the time, really, you're the only one who notices. But if it bothers you, use solid gold. Otherwise, gold filled. And I'll show you what you can do about it. Okay, then the other side. Okay, perfect. And that is done. Now, so as I was saying before, if that little black mark is going to bother you, this is what you can do. Have it on the inside of the ring and then again press down. So if there's an inside, press down. Inside, having the welded seam on the inside of the ring and then press down. It's a bit tricky to hold on to. Like this. In that way, when you are wearing it, it is harder it will naturally stay like this way. And it's harder for it to flip to the other side. So when you're wearing it, over time, the little half poppy seed black mark will be on the inside of the ring. So when you're wearing it, no one will see it. And this is what they look like worn together.